After the death of Julius Caesar, the rages of the civil war was seizing the city Rome. Hortensia famously addressed the triumvirate of Mark Antony, the heir of Julius Caesar, who we know now as Caesar Augustus, and Lepidus, and she said in part, "Our mothers once for all rose superior and made contributions when you were in danger of losing the whole empire, and the city itself, through the conflict with the Carthaginians. But then they contributed willingly, from their own jewelry, not by force of violence, but what they themselves were willing to give. Let war come, and we shall not be inferior to our mothers in zeal for the common safety, but for civil wars we may never contribute." In this speech, Hortensia refers to a well-known story of the voluntary donation of the Roman women to fund the defense of the city Rome against the Carthaginians. While material donation of the women was a heroic act of the matrons of Rome, while the pleading women offered sons in the lines of battles, they also offered their pleads for the protection of the populace to the gods. In this video and in this series, we will begin a fascinating look at some of the wartime observances, particularly of Roman women, and here lay some groundwork and discuss some of the wandering practices. Every Roman citizen held responsibilities to family and state in prayers and different kinds of practice in religious rites. Setting the stage, we will note that at war, men who could fight, which excluded many kinds of politicians and almost all priests, were in the lines or the achies, and mortality was of course high, this being before modern medicine. Soldiers and mourning relate to religion in the concern that those mourning were seen as incapable of engaging in most civic religious rites. Mourning prohibited an individual from the rituals necessary for the upkeep of the Roman religion. In defensive wars, every citizen has the incentive and desire to help protect their loved ones, their patria, their own lives, their property, and the women of Rome found the only serious avenue for their participation was their supplications or their supplicationes to the gods. The Roman temples were often empty of people, since they were meeting places for specific rituals, but only the superstitious would be seen frequenting the temples at various times throughout the day. Desperate for the lives of their sons and husbands in the wars, which was of course dangerous, Livy tells us that in 207 BC, while the senators of Rome held meeting round the clock, the plebs filled the forum desperate for news, but the matrons, he said, wandered like ghosts from one temple to the next, making conditional oaths with their jewelry, gold, and hair, with promises of devotions. It's curious that the Roman men, those who were not soldiers, in times of such turpitude and confusion, were in fact unwilling to regulate women as they often did, and instead stood in shocked silence with appreciation at their devotion of the matrons to their families and to the state, thus showing the true status of the Roman matrons as partakers in the Republic, which is something often forgotten, since they were usually excluded from public civic life. The next series, or the next participation in the series here, we'll be looking at some of the specific rituals around women in the sacred spaces and their hair as practices for making sacrifice. Please like and subscribe if you're interested, and pose any questions that you might have, and I'd be happy to answer them. Take care.